finer details of what WikiLeaks has revealed. Now, you ask why? Well, the language of power and the language of WikiLeaks is very complex. It took my team 3 months to understand the Iraq war logs, whereas at the same time, digital media is becoming less complex. Everything's sound bites, sound bites, sound bites. The real impact of WikiLeaks is under the surface. It's in the devil is in the detail, if that translates into Russian. This has two fundamental problems. First, the shift that we've seen in the media threatens the ability of journalists to understand the story, because sometimes they don't understand the inner workings of finances or government. And secondly, it's our ability to engage with journalists is fundamental. Our ability to engage your audience is fundamentally problematic. Lobbyists step into that breach. PR people, we can't understand lawyers and accountants the way they write. These sort of things are fundamental to what WikiLeaks is able and unable to expose. And let's talk about the financial crisis. Just an example of how things have got so much more complicated. In 1864, the law setting up America's banking system ran to 29 pages. In 2011, the Dodd-Frank Act ran to 848 pages. I don't think any journalist has probably read the whole thing back to back. And at the same time, I think this is a great photo. The picture on the left is the first ever copy of the Daily Telegraph. The picture on the right is, I think it just sums it up, about how hard it is for the journalists to properly explain what really went on in WikiLeaks. And it is incredibly hard. The media's just gone to sound bites and easy headlines. So in the age of WikiLeaks, as journalists, we're up against shortened attention spans. We're up against apathy amongst masses of people. We're trying to make a complicated world easier to understand, which is really hard to do. And there's a whole issue of decline of quality journalism. And incidentally, the same activities about hacking into things that WikiLeaks has been able to do, large organizations are now hiring PR companies to do exactly the same. So my basic take, just to finish off, is the digital revolution. If that joke translates, I'm glad. But thank you very much.
Спасибо, оптимистичная.
Thank you. Quite optimistic final picture. Gideon, please, you have the final say on this.
Setting up a sort of intra-British clash here. I mean, I'm more of the opinion that WikiLeaks slightly underwhelmed. I mean, I take your point that you look very deeply into the Iraq war logs and that there may be stuff there that reflects badly on Obama and badly on the American administration. But if you had said to me, you know, ahead of time, there's going to be this huge batch of American documents out there, I would have anticipated that there would be kind of riots outside American embassies all over the world, because there would be really embarrassing stuff in there. Now, in fact, most of the embarrassment appears to have been about the people that the Americans were writing about rather than for the Americans. So Zafar's account of Pakistan, there wasn't a huge surge of anti-American sentiment. It was people in Pakistan saying, my goodness, our politicians talk a double game. They're actually cooperating much more closely with the Americans than we thought. And similarly, other things that stick in the mind, the Saudi king actually urging the Americans to attack Iran behind the scenes while, saying different things in public. It's hard to identify those single killer facts that would have made the Americans reel back. Now, I have to say, that's not the Americans' reaction. They were genuinely outraged by WikiLeaks, and they're prosecuting Bradley Manning and so on. I would argue that actually it was rather effective public diplomacy for them, because in fact, I didn't think it really damaged them very much. Indeed, on the contrary, if you look at a lot of the cables, say, coming out of Kenya or elsewhere, the Americans have been making all sorts of statements about human rights in public, and people must have thought, well, behind their hands, they don't really care about this stuff. Actually, the private cable show, they're also worrying about it in private as well. So the sense that, the Americans are massively hypocritical, I think, by and large, WikiLeaks showed that the foreign policy that they avow in public is more or less what they're saying in private. And so it was actually really not that devastating to them. A broader point, I think that the WikiLeaks phenomenon is part of a bigger thing, which is that the loss of confidentiality. People, I think an older generation have got used to operating in a world in which there were private spheres where they could say things and they wouldn't get out. WikiLeaks is the biggest massive leak there is. But if you think of Mitt Romney and his now infamous 47% video, he was speaking to a group of private donors. He must have thought that when he said that 47% of the American public regarded themselves as victims, that would go no further. But in a new age where there are camera phones, easy recorders, anything you say in an audience is liable to be recorded and to get out there. So WikiLeaks was part of a broader phenomenon, which is that people are going to find it harder and harder to keep secrets.
Ну вот я в том конце
In that end of the panel, I saw smiles. Two Nikolais were responding with smiles. I believe you have something to respond. Is that right, Nikolai? Which of the Nikolais? Why don't you start, Nikolai? I'd like to pick up the thoughts that some of the colleagues were now expressing, and Arkady was one of them, and it may be somewhat connected to our discussions of yesterday regarding journalism and standards of ethics in journalism, double standards and so on. How come I think WikiLeaks is so popular today is that, as Ian had mentioned, modern mainstream media becoming so pop. There's so much Hollywood in the way they present information that if you were to follow coverage of any recent events, major ones like, let's take Arab Spring, they always have a good guy, there's a villain, and everything's happening on the backdrop of war. That's just 100% success recipe. And we'll take a recent story on Bahrain. Absolutely Hollywood history it could have become. It could have picked up by Western mainstream channels. They could have really rolled it out in a sec about the protests in Bahrain. Crowds of people flood the streets to protest against the monarchy. A few activists are thrown in jail. A 22-year-old guy of these Protestants dies in jail. So it's a wonderful plot for the Hollywood presentation of this story. For we have a 22-year-old who died, a young activist who fought for rights and freedoms. You could really show suffering mother and friends taking oath that they will continue the cause of their deceased comrade. At least the months of coverage would have been there. But I didn't really see that happening. I didn't see that story really unfolding. And you'd say, what about the Fifth Fleet of U.S., which is based in Bahrain? Huh? I'm just saying this, that in the world in recent years, a whole infrastructure has been deployed, a synergy of media and government, mainstream media and government. It's a giant octopus that wouldn't bite one of its tentacles. Mainstream media have learned to say things in such a way. They have developed a system of euphemisms that allow them to deliver the message based on the genre of that channel, and also stay clean in the eyes of their own government. And WikiLeaks was popular on the back of that more and more people, development of internet and citizen journalism, are coming to realize that things are not that simple, things are not that black and white, and therefore they start realizing that they're basically being lied to. So Assange and WikiLeaks have a great number of supporters. The Occupy movement, which has picked up momentum, is there. It's also, among other things, was driven by WikiLeaks, or the hackers that steal information and lay it out for the general public. It's also following the example of Assange and WikiLeaks. We're now witnessing a trend that most likely in some time, maybe in a generation's time, will fully destroy the current infrastructure of mainstream media. Thank you, Nikolai. Arkady, I see you have a desire to say, but if you would excuse me, I would like to refer to Mr. Kuzmin first to comment on the course of the discussion. Nikolai, since information bombs of WikiLeaks started going off, more and more people were asking the question, and I guess are still asking this question: how come this man, even with help of supporters, helpers, had managed to get so much top secret information? Many say that behind WikiLeaks and Julian Assange there are some political actors. What do you think about that? And also, if you wanted to respond to some previous utterances, please. Well, I think that this is so very, to say, indicative that WikiLeaks by many is perceived in the context of conspiracy theories. For Julian Assange himself believed that Facebook is also the tool of American secret services. Others think the same of WikiLeaks. I do not know. It is hard for me to say. I think that the interests are behind this. Is there a puppet master there? I doubt that. I would say, answering Nikolai I, that WikiLeaks phenomenon is truly the phenomenon of the internet age, of unmasking and disclosing the modern politics. This is something happening. Sovnarkom in 1917 immediately published all secret archives of the Russian foreign ministry, which caused immediately the discontent of Russia's former allies. Or John Pilger, the journalist who was working on uncovering, unveiling all the ugly things of Britain and Australia, who maintained close contacts with the officially unrecognized military regime of Burma. There was a book, Hidden Agenda, where he was doing same that today Assange is doing. So in fact, it seems to me that we at times facing some technological novelties, new notions in the world of technology, try to project them on a person, and we perceive that that new thing is happening with the person. Same way Oppenheimer, creator of the A-bomb, who thought that there may be no wars with that terrifying weapon's arrival. Arkady, if you could finish Gestalt, as psychologists say. I wouldn't say that I had the last instance truth, but I'd like to remind those who were yesterday here at the panel where Max Shevchenko moderated. I was a speaker there. He's not there, but he said in our way. What others say is not important in the background. Maxim yesterday said the modern world, he was very emotional yesterday when he spoke of that, is characterized, the modern world, that the trust to the government, confidence in government institutions is falling. Maybe a manifesto of anarchism from his mouth, I guess. But look, what has WikiLeaks done? It's not even important to say who's behind this. Puppet masters of some kind, maybe conspiracy theories, as Nikolai was saying. It's not important who's behind it, but what is important is what we get. So what we get is many people who mistrusted government institutions, in this case Western institutions, actually came true. They got proof. And I ask myself, how did it happen? How come it happened that a Russian TV channel, Nikolai, it's not to you personally, how come it is a Russian channel wanted to use Assange to maybe beef up its popularity? How come it's specifically a Russian media outlet doing it? I think those who made the decision to take Assange as a host on Russia Today couldn't fail to understand that a person who undermines trust to the Western government institutions in the West will one way or another support further deterioration of confidence to government institutions here in the East, in Russia. It may be good for Russia today, that it may just happen that, but it happened. But it's a trend that could be claimed. I don't know whether we will talk about this in this panel later, which is the absence or falling confidence to government institutions, but that will actually grow stronger in Russia. Thank you very much, Zafar. It's clear that we've all seen and observed the ever-growing role of internet in the advancement of protest moods and organization of disorder. What's your opinion about so-called Twitter revolutions? What do you think about that, please?
Well, to be very honest, I am not a Twitter person. I'm so involved in the kind of print journalism at the moment. Internet is growing. Twitter is still a very urban phenomenon in countries like Pakistan. It's huge in the developed societies, developed democracies, and Western societies. But when people make so much of a Twitter revolution or internet revolution, you come down to the developing countries and you say it's a very different world. People are still fighting to survive in countries like that. So there is a disconnect. Maybe tomorrow things may change. Coming back to WikiLeaks, what WikiLeaks has done is basically taken us to the original of journalism, describing news as the old saying goes. News is what somewhere somebody is trying to stop, and rest of the stuff is all publicity. This is what WikiLeaks has done, given us documents which neither the country which was involved in, say, the United States, or countries like Pakistan, Syria, India, and so many other countries, where politicians, bureaucrats, and others were trying to share information with them. So those documents, and the other question that it has brought to us is the decision between what is in public interest and what is in the so-called national or state interest, something where not just in the developing countries, also in the Western societies, where stories and news is blocked in the name of national and state interest, where when countries go to war, journalists really line up together with the state and trying to block news. This is where the major challenge came for us. Whether you go for the public interest, if it is in clash with the state interest or not. And WikiLeaks and the documents gave us the courage. No, go for it. Go and publish it. It is in public interest. And the response was tremendous. And as it was pointed out earlier, it encouraged many depressed, frustrated bureaucrats, civil servants sitting in the security establishment, in the governments, who knew about how the deals were being struck, how the governments were playing a double game, to start digging out documents, sharing it with journalists. So it has set new standards of sharing what was not being shared before with journalists, in the hope that in the public interest it will come to light. And it's a great thing.
Гидеон, Ян, я так понимаю,
Gideon Yana, I take it that the question regarding Twitter is more relevant for you. Do you have an account?
It's become the main way I waste time. When I should be working, I'm kind of looking at rubbish on Twitter, but I try to stop doing it. I was amused by the suggestion that the US Secret Service is running Facebook, because why would they be posting so many videos of cats? I just don't understand it. But this is mainly seems to be what's on Twitter, on Facebook, as far as I can tell. But more seriously, I think that what's happened with Twitter and with